This is the story of stories. It has great similarities with Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale about Ugly Duckling. On the one hand, we see the yellow ducklings, destined to become beautifully colored ducks. They are scientifically proved facts, policy principles, compelling statistics, impressive model results, and in-depth studies. On the other hand, we have Ugly Duckling, the stories, tales for in the pub, next to the bed, or on stage. They are carriers of emotions and do not really matter, it is told. Why do we speak of the Ugly Duckling? Well, stories are fragmentary, may jump from one topic to another, magnify matters, and can be completely untrue. Storytellers unconsciously put things in the foreground and thereby push other things into the background. They vary in rhythm, wave up and down in speaking frequency, stutter every now and then, insert silences, and support lines of argument with body language and facial expressions. Every storyteller tells it differently. A story shows a distorted reality. No wonder it plays a minor role in the world of professionals. But is that justified? In the previous episode about knowledge, I showed you that we can distinguish between explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge, tacit knowledge. From explicit knowledge, we know that we can transfer it by a book or a database. But what about implicit knowledge? That is where the swan reveals itself, because we learned that implicit knowledge can be transferred by telling stories. It's not so much about what people say literally, it's about the distortions. Our brain functions in a non-linear way and is able to extract the knowledge out of the stories. If you want to use the entire knowledge iceberg, you have to combine the stories with facts, principles, statistics, model results, and studies. And then another something special. People place a lot of value on stories. If a story is appropriate in their eyes and connected with their emotions, you have to be amazing good if you want to convince them of the contrary based on facts. We noticed that at the United States elections. The story of fraud was embraced by many people as a correct story in line with their emotional world. Despite the facts that showed its nonsense, people persisted. The story turned out to be stronger than the facts. The only way to make a wrong story disappear is to replace it by a better story in line with the facts. The Ugly Duckling is now really reflected as a swan. Stories are no byproducts in our life, but main causes. Summarizing until now, stories play a crucial role in the transfer of knowledge and thus a crucial role in coping with complexity. Facts are only accepted by people when they are framed into an appropriate story. And there is more. And that has to do with my own working field, acting in a complex living environment. We tend to see the living environment as an arrangement of objects. Sometimes we talk about assets and asset management. We objectify the space in order to be able to set up and manage it optimally. People in that space we call citizens. That creates distance. We also can see our living environment as an arrangement of stories. These stories are linked to history and to the people who live in it. New stories emerge every day. I myself grew up in Leeuwarden. This city is full of personal stories. We picked up our first cat from the shelter. The schoolmaster told beautifully about William of Orange. After playing the recorder in a nursing home, we received a special block of chocolate. At the Boy Scouts we explored nature. I was fumbling in love during the Village Festival in Gotham. We added values to the rowing sport. We jumped over ditches to impress girls. My first deep kiss was at Frostcopola, and at school I started to develop a passion for algorithms and programming. Everybody has his own stories about relationships with other people and with nature. So we can add a third value. Stories form the connection between people and the living environment and between the people themselves. They reflect symbiosis. If you want to change something in the living environment, you have to know these stories, at least respect them. If you act in the right way, you will add new stories to the existing ones, and they will be passed on. At this very moment, our globe is dictated by the story of almost unbridled market forces. Put the nasty government at a distance and let the market do its work. Then everything will be alright. That's a very strong story, but with tragic consequences. If we really want to change politics, we have to come up with a new, coherent narrative, one in which we can continue to breathe clean air. However, we don't have that narrative yet. I see governments, researchers, and civil society organizations pouring out many beautiful concepts and principles over society. As long as we do not find sufficient connection with the stories that are told in the living environment, and there is no overarching narrative, we condemn ourselves increasingly to complicatedness, in which we think we can control processes against better judgment. So we can't say yet they lived happily ever after. There is still a long way to go. Therefore, this episode ends with "to be continued." In the next episode, I will talk about the so-called work stat. I hope to see you again. Till then, bye!